Hello. Today I want to touch on the idea of networks. And by networks, I mean people networks, networks of people in your organization. See if I can sketch it enough to make sense in these few minutes. So I'm sketching and it's on the screen behind me. And we're going to talk about how networks exist at your company and in your department or whatever your size of your organization is. So let me step off the side here a little bit. So my argument is that there are, at least in every company, 3 networks of people. The first of these that you probably think of or would think of first is the traditional hierarchy. The hierarchy of the org chart, where we have a leader at the top, and then maybe here we have managers at this level, and I'm not showing each individual person that might be managed because it's a big group. So we have managers, we have directors, we have senior directors, and maybe VPs. Maybe this is a senior VP. Okay, so we have this org chart that often is organized by skill or by more traditional departments. For example, maybe this is the senior director of engineering, and this is the senior director of test or quality, right? And so there's different people underneath these senior directors that are involved with engineering, coders, etc. And then we have quality people and so on. This is the geography of the organization as we currently know it, hierarchy. And when somebody says, hey, I need to get something done, we often will go to the hierarchy and say, oh, I should talk to this person here who is a director in the quality department, right? We look to the org chart as the hierarchy of authority as to how to talk. There is a network that exists in all organizations that often is somewhat hidden, and that is a social network, right? Social. The social network is people who have worked together in the past, but maybe now are in different departments or different groups. It's people who know each other, who are friends, who might meet after work or at the water cooler. They are not on the same team or the same organization, but they are networked together because they know each other. So this manager here, for example, might be friends with and talk a lot with this manager over here, and also talks to this manager over here in the quality department. And this manager in the quality department is very well known and talks a lot with this director in the quality department, right? So these are informal networks that happen and they spread across the whole company, right? There could be this person, this manager over here in engineering could have a connection over here in human resources, for example, or in sales. Let's say this is sales, right? So these are networks that are not well documented. They're ad hoc. They're social networks, people who like to talk to each other and who worked with each other in the past, right? So what happens when there's a crisis? What happens when you really need to move on things quickly? For example, let's say that this team here, this manager right here, this manager has a problem from the quality department, whatever. They're waiting on the quality department to finish something, or they haven't set up something or whatever, and it's bogging down his team and his group. He might go to this manager up here and say, hey, do you know somebody in quality that can get this thing moving? And she might then go over here and say, hey, Jose, do you know how we can get this thing moving, or make a connection to connect these two, right? This is how the social network gets used in an ad hoc way to get stuff done. When we're not willing or we don't have the time to communicate up and down and up and through the chains, instead of doing that, we connect to our social networks and say, hey, I know somebody in quality, I can talk to them. So the third network that we want to talk about that's important, let me get a darker color here, is the value stream network or the value network. And the value network is when we are able to create teams. In other words, documented connections and documented teams that maybe this person in sales and this person in quality and this person and this person are connected officially as a team, because maybe the flow of value for the customer needs to go through sales and and quality and engineering, right? That this gives a flow of value. So a value network often looks like the social network. In other words, a social network is kind of an ad hoc value network. But here with a value network, we want to clearly define who's supposed to talk to who so that the flow of value is not interrupted. And it doesn't necessarily, and often will not, match the hierarchy of the org chart. The value network is usually the result, if you define a value network, it's usually the result of setting up a value stream, where from the customer point of view, customer might be internal people, but from the customer point of view, you're going to look at how does this customer work through our system? What do they do? What are the steps they take to get things done? And how do we organize ourselves to match that value creation that the customer needs? So the tip that I would like to point out with my scribbles here is that if you can set up an explicit value network, it doesn't necessarily have to match your org chart, but an explicit value network is something that you should look at and use a value stream as the way to help you define what is the value network. Yes, this person in sales might report to this VP of sales, but their primary responsibility is to help this value stream and this value network to produce value for your company, instead of having to bounce around in an org chart that doesn't match the way value is created in your organization.